What's good? I'm Joey, I'm a psychologist, and in this video we will talk about what not to say to your psychologist, what confidentiality is, and when this confidentiality can be broken. Before we begin, I want to mention that I'm making this content in 3 different languages, German, Spanish, and, well, English. And therefore, I have to consider how this information can differ in different parts of the world. So, yeah, just keep that in mind. I want to help you learn about this topic and encourage you to talk to your therapist if you have more questions. You can obviously leave me also related or any other type of questions down in the comments. I will do my best to read them all, answer them all, or cover them in future videos. Starting with what is confidentiality? Generally, your therapist should give you all the information about this topic in the first session. However, for the sake of this video, confidentiality in therapy refers to the obligation to protect the information and privacy of the client by not disclosing any information shared during treatment. Everything you say in therapy stays in therapy. Your therapist can't talk about you to anyone, nor can he even disclose that you are going to therapy. So next time you're out for dinner and your psychologist walks by, don't get offended when he ignores you like a diet on Christmas holidays. He's just doing his job right. When you, on the other hand, are completely cool with sharing specific information or greeting your psychologist in public, go ahead. It's all about your comfort, about what you want to share and not to share with others. And here's precisely where the importance of confidentiality beholds. Creating a safe space where you can say anything without any negative consequences. We often don't talk about specific thoughts or emotions because we fear the consequences or don't want to bother someone unnecessarily, but not in therapy. Here you should say almost everything that you want to say. Which brings me to the next point on our list, what not to say to your psychologist. So you know how confidentiality can sometimes be broken? And if you didn't, you know now. Well, this part has absolutely nothing to do with it. I'm sorry, I admit it's a bit of a clickbaity title, but indeed there is something that you should never tell your psychologist. Lies. We'll discuss when confidentiality can be broken in a second, but let me emphasize on how important it is not to lie to your therapist. When we lie, we sabotage therapy. We either slow down the process or make it completely inefficient. And at the end of the day, it's all about helping you and getting you ahead. I mean, you're even paying for this service. So do yourself a favor and don't lie. But don't get me wrong, not lying does not mean that you have to say everything. Some things are hard to share and you may not want to share them, and that's completely cool. Go with your pace, go with your comfort. But try not to lie, try to be honest and open. The more your therapist knows, the better he can help you. Even saying that you don't want to talk about a specific topic because it makes you feel uncomfortable is a step in the right direction. And if you're the type of person who wonders, lies? What should I lie about? Well, let me tell you some of the most common lies in therapy. Pretending to be doing better than we are. Pretending to be doing worse than we are to continue getting help, and pretending that the therapy or the specific advice is working great, when it's just not. I already talked about this in a previous video, but basically if something doesn't work for you for whatever reason, please tell your psychologist. It's his job to find something suitable for you. There is no one-fit-all solution. Otherwise, everybody would be doing great with that $1 self-help book you can buy on the corner. And it would also make it so much easier to create a YouTube channel that can really help everybody. But everyone is different and therefore needs a different approach. And now let's talk about when confidentiality can actually be broken. In certain situations, a therapist may be required by law to break confidentiality. Sadly, I can't list all specific cases here, since each country and state can have its own regulations. For example, in the United States, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA, sets national standards for accountability. But individual states may have additional laws. And in Europe, we have the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, for example, and so on. That said, while there may be differences, we luckily have overlapping and similar guidelines worldwide. So to give you some specific cases when confidentiality can be broken, let's look at some examples set by the American Psychology Association, APA. It's one of the largest professional organizations representing psychologists worldwide. So I think it's a pretty good benchmark. These cases include when you give permission to share your information, which makes sense. When there is a risk of harm to yourself or others, here are included suicidal thoughts or ongoing abuse of children, elderly or disabled people, or people in general. A court order. In lawsuits or criminal investigations, the professional may be required to disclose confidential information. To assure the best professional service, the psychologist may need to share some information with a colleague or supervisor to provide a better service. And this one was new to me: to obtain payment. Sometimes insurance providers or similar organizations need certain information for payment. But important, hold on, put that new identity kit back in the closet. Therapists shall disclose the pure minimum of information needed in each case. Just because confidentiality can be broken in some specific cases, like the ones I just mentioned, doesn't mean they will disclose everything you said. Disclosing your name to a colleague is entirely unnecessary to get advice. Also keep in mind that often it's not a black and white or right and wrong scenario. Just because you have suicidal thoughts doesn't mean that confidentiality must be broken. It really depends on the situation. Keep in mind that the therapist does not want to break confidentiality, because doing so will harm the relationship between therapist and client, which is crucial for a good treatment. Let's have some examples that I stole from my professor and see if we keep or break confidentiality. 1. A couple has taken their 16-year-old daughter for treatment due to her social phobia. The girl tells us that to overcome her social fear, she consumes 2 liters of beer and a joint every weekend when she goes out. The girl does not want her parents to find out. This one is extra tricky, since age limit changes a lot throughout countries, states, and also time, like history-wise. So I always encourage you to ask your therapist directly if this one is from special interest to you. You could show him a couple of these examples and ask him to answer all of them. This way you can cover up the one that really interests you. For me, I'm living in Spain right now, where age limit is 16 for confidentiality. Therefore, the answer would be no. I would not disclose this information to her parents. A lot depends on the situation, obviously. If I had the feeling of her being in danger due to a strong dependency, my answer could probably change. But 2 liters of beer, for me as a German, I call that breakfast, and the joint won't put her in a life-threatening situation either. I mean, it indeed can. Drug consumption always involves risks, which I don't want to downplay here, but we have to ponder. Do we really want to hurt or destroy our relationship and trust? The trust that we can use to overcome and better the situation? I repeat, ask your therapist what he thinks, but for me it's a clear no. We don't break confidentiality here. We want to try to help her, utilizing mutual trust and respect. Next example. A client with AIDS refuses to tell his partner about his condition, despite continuing to have sex with her without a condom. The therapist has tried to convince him to inform her, considering the risks involved, but the client continues to refuse. This one is more straightforward. The answer is yes, I would break confidentiality. Here, there is a severe risk involved in another person's life. We should ensure that he is telling the truth before we break confidentiality, since it's a big deal. However, if the stated case is true, we would break confidentiality. The answer would be no if the client used a condom or did not engage in unsafe sex. Example 3. The mother of an 8-year-old boy informs the therapist that her husband frequently hits their son. She does not want to sue him out of fear of repercussions. The husband refuses to attend the consultation. I repeat, ensuring we understand the situation is critical, like clarifying what frequently means for the mother and the gravity of the so-called hits. Do we speak of a light hit on the butt cheek or something more harmful? When was the last time this happened and why? Generally speaking, we would see ourselves as being under the obligation to report this to the authority, since the well-being of the child is priority, and this is a clear example of when we can break confidentiality. On the other hand, suppose this event happened 2 years ago, and the father lost his temper, slipped, and actually felt bad for his actions. In this case, we can't talk about imminent danger, therefore we would not break confidentiality. So it really depends on the situation. Number 4. And this is the last one. During couples therapy, the therapist is informed in confidentiality by the husband that he is occasionally having sex with prostitutes. There will be people that don't like this, but since no one's life is in danger, we would not break confidentiality here, therefore we wouldn't tell the spouse. What we would or could do is talk with the husband about the ethical implications of his behavior and how it affects the relationships and its goals, but we wouldn't snitch here. Alright, gents and all you tough cookies out there, let's wrap this up. Confidentiality in therapy is the holy grail, a rule set in stone. But for the greater good, even stone can crack sometimes. Do you have any more questions? Leave them down in the comments, and until next time.